Good morning, DC. How you doing, sir?
Morning, DC. Morning, Martin. This is DC. How are you doing? I missed you.
I missed you too, man. Glad to have you back. We were just talking a little bit about softball. What are your thoughts just on what this Alabama softball team was able to do? And, of course, then we'll talk about the controversy around whether Murph pitched the wrong person, left the wrong person in, didn't pull soon enough, et cetera.
Well, I think I was talking to James in the break there, and I think you can't talk enough about this Alabama softball team. That's what I think. I mean, this team picked early on in the preseason to finish 8th in the SEC. I think they took that as a motivating factor. Coach Murphy did probably the best job of coaching those ladies to get them in a position to play and play for each other and play for the team goal and the ultimate thing, not individual accolades, but the team. And I think that showed as the way they played. They had a lot of fight, a lot of grit to them. And I just can't say enough about the coaching job he did or the playing that these 19 ladies did and the way they felt for the teammates and played for the teammates and played for Alabama softball. I think it meant something. We saw this past week. I know you were on vacation, Mark, but this past week, Twitter was abuzz with alumni, softball alumni, talking about this Team 23 because that's a tight-knit group of people once you've come through Coach Murphy's program. And I think everybody looked at this team as one of his best coaching jobs ever. So I don't think you can say enough about this team, what they were able to accomplish after being expected so little out of them at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and Robert Saucier posted on Facebook that Oklahoma was number 2, Arizona was number 1. Oklahoma was number 1 coming into the postseason and failed to hit a home run the entire College World Series, and that's where Arizona passed Oklahoma. But all year, Oklahoma and Arizona were 1 and 2, and Oklahoma had finished off the season at number 1. And after playing Alabama and hitting 3 home runs in the College World Series, Women's College World Series, they went back up to number 1. So just wanted to let Robert know that when the Women's College World Series started, Oklahoma was the number 1 home run hitting team in the country, and that's why. And when you've played against a team, teams come due at some point, and I think that Murph probably made that decision to go with not to go with Cornell because of the deep ball and the deep ball threat that Oklahoma presented, and they just happened to come out in that one game. And you have to, could you imagine what grit and determination it took for from Friday night till Sunday? They played how many games? I mean, from Saturday to Sunday, 3 games.
3 games in 24 hours.
Yeah, and against 2 of them against the best team in the country. So you can't say enough about them, and it's just a fun sport to watch. And just my wife told me, she said, I didn't know you were that into softball. I said, I'm not. It's not that I'm that into softball, but when it gets postseason, the intensity of that game is as competitive a sport as any. And I actually thought about this, James, and I know James is a softball fanatic, guru, and all that stuff. So it's probably not fair to ask him that question, DC. But I ask you, other than watching Alabama football, what sport would you rather watch in reality? Other than watching football, what would be the second sport if you had to choose? What would be the second sport you would want to see? Is it right now? Would it not be, Alabama softball?
Well, I think you have to go out on softball just because of the way they're playing. Of course, me, Martin. I'm basketball, so I'd say Alabama basketball. I'm so excited about Alabama basketball. I can't wait for the season to start. And Coach Oates just won't let you talk about anybody else. But what he's doing with the recruiting is just phenomenal right now. So yeah, but I think Alabama softball is right up there. I've got season tickets to both basketball, softball. Go to most of the games and have for some time. And just the idea of what they're able to accomplish, what they're doing right now, it's so addictive to get to watch because every play, every game is exciting. And when you get down to the finals, when you're playing, anybody can beat anybody. That type of game, it can go either way. Those are so exciting to watch because it can turn on one mistake, it can turn on one great play, it can turn on one big offensive explosion or one great pitching performance. You just don't know what it is. It's just exciting to watch, see how it's going to play out.
Yeah, and let's switch gears. Once again, congratulations to Coach Murphy. But You mentioned it. Nate Oates is making it almost impossible to talk about anything other than Alabama basketball in a slow sports season. Slow sports cycle. He's making a lot of noise. And you and I really hadn't got to talk much about James Rojas signing with Alabama in terms of what he brings to this program. Let's start off with him, the junior college All-American, James Rojas, signing with the Alabama program after they lost.
I think we called it on your show that morning, the morning after we were talking about not getting – if we didn't get Trendon Watford, didn't get him, what did it mean? I said, well, I think Coach Oates already had someone in mind, and this is who I was talking about. I think we talked about that morning about 6:45 at 10 o'clock over the press release. And so, James Rojas brings a tremendous amount of experience to the Alabama team, a lot of length, defensive play, offensive production. I just think that in him we're getting a great player that can come in and just plug and play. And fits in great in Coach Oates' system. And Coach Oates has been following him since he was early in the 7th grade, I think. So he has a relationship with him and he believes in him. So I look for that's another great get for him. And then he wasn't through. I mean, he goes out and this week, gets a commitment from a top 5 player out of Villanova transfer. And I'm telling you, if he can get that waiver granted, and who knows? He might get it just because it doesn't look like he will. That's how inconsistent the NCAA is these days. So,
that's right.
If you don't supposed to, you don't look like you're supposed to get it. That's who they give it to. So I don't know. And it's in an era where NCAA wants to try to give some waivers, so people don't think they're not giving waivers. So maybe he gets it. Yeah. But if he gets it, I saw some predictions from some of the basketball analysts that put Alabama in the preseason top 25. Two analysts put them in. Who would have ever thought that? But
yeah, coming off of last year,
gets a guy who comes in and can play alongside Kara Lewis, along with John Petty and Alex Reese and the other players that we've got, plus Rojas coming in, Raymond Hawkins, all the different players that are coming in. He's making a difference, and he's got the excitement back. And when they have their first workout, they're gassed because they realize now what kind of offense they're going to play. That gets the players even excited. So I'm excited about what he's doing. I think he's doing it the right way too. I think everybody's going to be excited. My only knock on Coach Oates is he's not one of these guys that comes in and poor mouth. He comes in and says, "Hey, he set the bar pretty high for everybody." I'm not sure he knows how rabid a fan base Alabama is. If you can't deliver, can turn on him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, going back to the James Rojas, in terms of Alabama basketball, and it's always, as we briefly mentioned this last week, it was, of course, disappointment that Trendon didn't come. But since Trendon was truly trying to be a one-and-done guy, does the Rojas, in reality, make more sense for a coach who's trying to build a program and get some continuity and implement a scheme? Does the Rojas signing actually make more sense for longevity of building a program for Nate Oates than even possibly Trendon Watford would have?
Much more sense, because that's the practical thing you want to do. You want to plug and play someone in that can play right now in a position that you need, and go out and get the player that you want to have a relationship with. You can't just find that just anywhere. So I think that makes a much more practical signing. He's not going to be one and done. He'll be here for the duration. He'll make a difference, and he'll fill a need that's right now that Coach Oates has. And I think it was a great sign, great practical sign.
And then as we head over, we briefly talked about it. Jahvon Quinnerly, I think he nicknamed Jelly or something like that. I think, with the way he finishes his shots. But when you look at this young man, if he's able to come in, bringing in a good 1-2 punch or maybe 1-1 punch based on how they play. Nate Oates seems to kind of spread it out, and I don't know if you necessarily have a traditional point guard per se, in the sense of one bringing it up the court slowly. They seem to push it every time. Is this guy one of those? I know you said that two guys said that he top 25, but if this guy gets eligible, what type of finish do you see with Alabama in the SEC potentially, and then from there, if you can get into the tournament, you can always make a run.
Yeah, I think if he gets eligible, I see Alabama, improving their record over last year. I think we're in the regular season, we're more than 20 wins, and we are, in the upper top division of the SEC, and have an opportunity to win the SEC tournament with the players with the style of offense that Coach Oates plays. But not only him, you got Quinnerly coming in. If he gets eligible, you got Beetle Bolden, you got Kyra Lewis already here. Coach Oates is going to spread the floor. And he wants 4 players that can bring the ball down and bring it down fast anytime to start his offense. So, I think that it's a room for all of them to start to play, make an impact. So, I think I'm one of these optimists that are excited about what's going on. I'm thinking Alabama's going to have a lot better team and finish top of the SEC, have a chance to win the tournament and go to the NCAA.
All right, we're going to continue this basketball conversation because I want to kind of ask you a couple questions when it comes to men's basketball. You talked about the 4 players spreading it out, bringing it up to court. What's Coach Oates' biggest challenge potentially with this team? Think about that question, and then a couple other questions I got for you based on some things happening in the summer for this Alabama basketball team. We're speaking with DC, DCCapstoneReport.com, DCCapstoneReport.com. All right, let's continue our conversation with DC. Welcome back in, DC. We're talking a little bit of basketball here, and let's stay on that for a little bit because, well, I was finna say because we'll get to football and we'll have plenty of time, but with Coach Oates, who knows what's going on. As you look at this Alabama team, and you mentioned something. You said Alabama and under Coach Oates will want to have 4 guys that can bring the ball up, which intrigued me because to me that would be a glaring need for this team. So when you look at Coach Oates and implementing his system, what do you think is going to be his biggest challenge with the current roster makeup he has?
Well, I don't think there was any doubt that it was ball handlers coming in. He needed people to handle the ball, to get the ball. That's his game. Wants fast break, get the ball up the court. And he wants it to break from any point as soon as they get the rebound. So, I'm thinking he needs at least 3 to 4 good ball handlers on the court. His next challenge is going to be outside shooting. I think that's a mainstay. He wants every player, all five positions, that can hit the outside shot at any time, because the way he moves the ball with so much spacing, it gets people open for those long shots. Those are opportunities that you see in every game he's ever played, ever coached. At Buffalo. And the third thing's got to be conditioning. I think those are the 3 things that when he looked at the staff, looked at what he had coming back as far as the players, he had to address. I think he's doing that. If you look at who he's going after people that can handle the ball. He went hard after Kyra Lewis to keep him, and then the players that he already had in the signing class, want to keep them coming in. Now people he's signed or can handle the ball. And also, he's got people coming in who can hit the outside shot. He worked on keeping John Petty. He liked Alex Reese and his ability to hit the outside shot from the big man position. So I think he's got that. And then he filled that strength and conditioning position with someone who can really run this team into shape and in the conditioning that he needs them in to play the style of offense that he wants to play. So I think those are his 3 biggest tasks to get done and to get the team where he needs them to be.
And with that being, I totally agree with you, ball handling, because to me that was one. Even when we played slow down ball handling was a big challenge for last year's team. So with that, kind of going through the list here, if you think they're going to be in that first 5 rotation, of course, obvious Kyra Lewis.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a great ball handler. He'll be in it. I think he'll
go ahead.
Do a good job.
Alex Reese.
I think Alex Reese may not be in the top 5 rotation, but his outside shooting ability is the thing that'll get him there.
What about Herbert Jones?
Herbert Jones is going to have to work on his ball handling skills. No doubt he has defense. No doubt he's got to work on finishing plays and ball handling. I think Coach Oates has even said that. I've seen a couple of analysts that says, scouts that said he'd be an NBA prospect if he worked on his ball handling.
And here, this past weekend, as I was watching some basketball, you know who Herbert Jones? I said this is the guy. He will be the Iguodala of Alabama this year with that Golden State spread, and the guy who, if he can work on that shot, he's not going to be your main shooting guy, but when you leave him open, he got to be able to knock it down. And his ball handling concerns me with that, but we're going to run out of numbers here in a minute. We got John Petty.
John Petty's definitely the outside threat and the wingman. He's the guy that can be the open man to finish the fast break when they drive in and dish it out. So I think definitely he could be in the starting five. He also needs to work on his ball skills on how to finish plays on the fast break.
Yeah, and he did much better driving off the pump fake this year. So hopefully he'll continue to improve. Grad transfer James Bolden. I
think Bolden has a chance to be one of the three guards that start. If he's always said that, I haven't seen the one I've seen the least. So but what everybody says, he's one of the three that he can start alongside Kyra Lewis and Quinnerly.
Okay, now we're talking about a couple of the freshmen. Of course, we won't have much knowledge on them. Jalen Forbes.
Don't know much about him. It just depends on how he develops the freshman.
And I'm gonna skip the Jahvon Gary is a guy, and Raymond Hawkins are guys who could come in. I don't think they're gonna jump right into that starting rotation. Jahvon Quinnerly, we both said if he gets eligible, we think he'll be one of the guys fighting for a position. Does James
Hawkins may be a guy that surprised you. He's coming out of high school, but he has a body and a build. He has an opportunity to come in, and if he gets really invested, he might be the one of the ones that will surprise you.
And he actually is a year older. He went to prep school too, so that does make a difference. He's not a 18-year-old freshman that's just playing again. He's from California, but Finley Prep out of Nevada. Then Rojas, does he get into that five?
No doubt. I think Rojas has a chance to start his junior college career and coming in like I expect him to do. I think he has a chance to be in that four position.
Does pretty much Galen Smith and Javion Davis Fleming are they guys that's buying time, or do you think those guys find a role in this team? Because they just from my limited basketball, I look at those two guys and go, I
don't know. I think they find a role. I looked at Javion Davis Fleming and what he's done for himself since he got here. If you look at his body change and what he's been able to do physically with his own body, to me that shows me he's invested in getting better. So I think he might be the one that can find a role in the game. Galen Smith, to me, is more of a role player, more of a rebounder. I'm not sure where he fits in this style of a team that Nate Rose puts on the court.
All right. So when you look at that group, I think, and I'm gonna tell you the guy I think if he can do what he did down the stretch, I think Alex Reese. I think he fits. I think he's going to be more at home in this system, and I think we're going to see a guy whose lid pops off. I think he was limited because of the way Avery Johnson played him. I think he's one of those stretch forwards that can absolutely knock it down. The question on Alex to me is his heart and hustle.
That's exactly, you hit it right on the head. I thought to myself when Nate Oates mentioned in this press conference, we're looking for big men that can shoot the three. I thought I could just see a smile break out on Alex Reese's face because, hey, somebody wants to use me for what I can do. I think the only thing is, can he develop into the conditioning that he needs to be in to be able to play a large number of minutes and contribute at a high level of intensity. And that's the only thing I've ever thought about Alex Reese. He can do that. And I think this may, like you said, energize him and ability to play in the right role. So I look for him to be able to come in and make a difference.
That's DC Capstone Report. You can find it at dccapstonereport.com. Coming back on the other side, we're going to finish up the fourth quarter with DC. DC, I want to ask you about this Hall of Fame nomination on yesterday, or came out. I read it on yesterday. Hall of Fame, 2 nominees for the next class for Alabama is EJ Jr. and Chris Samuels. I'm going to ask you a couple questions on whether those guys you think deserving, but then also is there anything that needs to be read into this, the fact that they skipped from Bryant era completely over to the well, it's the end of Stalin's era, but really post-Stalin era for the most part. We'll have that conversation and more. Go ahead, DC.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. I got one other thing I want to end on with football, because I know all your listeners love football. One little tidbit.
That'll work. Thanks, DC. Coming back on the other side, we'll be right here on the Blitz. DC Capstone Report, University of Oral and Facial Surgery 2-minute warning is underway. DC, because you said you had something specific you want to get to, I'll go ahead and let you mention that before we have that conversation about the Hall of Fame.
Well, I just want to know that all the listeners know out there that, every year Coach Saban tries to set the tone for this upcoming year. And just all the players just reported for the summer workouts and everything. At the end of last season, we heard a couple of players talking about, was everybody bought in, that sort of thing. Saban says we'll get back to the Alabama factor. I listen closely to what Scott Cochran tells those players when they first get here, because I believe that Coach Saban gets him to translate the message. And one of the things, I don't know if you saw it, Martin, I'll get you to comment on it, what you would when you hear this from a player. And one of the first things that Scott Cochran communicated to the players when they got there for the workouts was a statement that I thought was so profound. He probably didn't make it up. I know somebody else probably came up his original with someone else, but it was so profound that it applies to everybody where you are in life, whether in your family life, your church life, your work life, and it's definitely in the football team life. But this is a statement he made. He said, "If your presence doesn't make an impact, then your absence won't make a difference."
Oh,
and so, man, that
repeat that one more time.
If your presence doesn't make an impact, then your absence won't make a difference. Listen to that. If your presence doesn't make an impact, then your absence won't make a difference. Now that resonates, I think, with a message that Coach Saban is trying to get to all these players of individually making an impact, or hey, somebody else will.
Yeah, that's right. That is. I mean, you hear that?
You hear that as a player, Martin? What are you thinking?
Well, what it's pretty much telling you as a player is, if you're not making a difference while we're here, you're not. As far as your role, you better be making making impact in terms of your role by being there versus trying to threaten if you're not. And
that's exactly right.
I mean, and that's kind of the point. I briefly had it up, but we won't get into it too deep. But the Brew McCoy situation, the kid who was a wide receiver at USC, then he transferred to Texas, and then he's transferring back to USC, and for whatever reason, that's one of the downfalls of this transfer portal. And he's saying this for personal reason. I get it, but that speaks to this whole statement is if your presence, I love that. If your presence doesn't have impact, then your absence won't make a difference. And I think he's just telling them, guys, don't be threatening what you're going to do if you don't play, because that can't, down the stretch, DC, I heard it from numerous people, the threat of players saying that they were going to leave. Several players, if they didn't get to play, if they didn't get this or whatever, they were threatening. And I think that's part of the message is, listen, if you're not having impact while you're here and you're not impacting enough to get on the field, threatening us that you won't be here is not going to matter moving forward.
Yeah, I think so.
So, you got any other comments on that?
No, I just find it always interesting that Coach Saban uses Coach Cochran, and it is one constant in his coaching career, to translate the message he's trying to get across. And that's the first thing he tells them. He tweets it out and says, "Hey, it's game time, guys. Get your minds right." This is I think that's a very impactful statement. Hey, I think we can use it in everyday life.
Yes.
Where you're at work, where you're at church, where in your family, with your children. If your presence doesn't make an impact, then your absence won't make a difference.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Make an impact everything we do individually every day. I think that's what he's trying to tell his players.
I think fathers need to hear that, because a lot of times we hear absentee fathers and we think about the fathers who just walked out on their kids, but that message gets home to the fathers that's there, but their presence is there, but they're not having any impact on their children. So yeah, that's definitely that may have to become a theme message for men's ministry somewhere. So
I agree.
Okay, DC.
I don't want to leave the show without getting to what you want to say. I know where you're going with. I heard the press release. I saw it, and I thought, well, what about Copeland? What about Curry? What about Teague? What about David Palmer? We wouldn't have a college football like it is today without David Palmer. He was the deuce before there was ever a Wildcat or a Wild Hog. I mean,
that's
come
right.
on, Alabama, get with it and get the right people. My understanding is it's the university that puts the players up for nominations. So. What are you doing? You skipped over a whole era of great college football. This is not pro Hall of Fame. This is college football Hall of Fame.
Right.
And those names I just named out there are names that made an impact on college football. You can't tell me there's not a college punter in the world that played the time against David Palmer that wanted to kick him the ball. And that's a player that made a college impact.
Sky punting became a more normal part of punting under David Palmer, where you say we'll kick it 35 yards, but a mile high, then kick it 45 and 50 yards and let him get his hands on it. He changed the game. A bunch of guys, and that's just off of that little era. There's a bunch of guys. There's a lot of guys between, other than at least they've nominated Humphrey, they've nominated Bennett, they've nominated Thomas, but then boom, the next thing you know is we're over at 1999.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of years between 88 and 99. Nothing from the Kerry era up until 99 in the Stallings era, and that's just anyway. Instead of cramming that in. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because I want to see if there's anything else that comes out about this and why this is the case. Because it seems on surface, I let you give just a base opinion. On the surface, it seems like a huge oversight and almost slap in the face to that whole era of football.
Now, I would agree with you. When I saw it come out, I'm thinking, well, they just skipped over a whole lot of folks. They should have been considered in there, and I'd like to see, why or how they decide to do it this time. I'm hoping that there's just some kind of oversight and they're going to go back and make that up. But who knows? Well, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, we got a few guys that have radio voices. I'll see if they speak about it as well. But I've personally have said that the Bryant era, and then we had a lot of love in the 92 era until Saban came along, and we're kind of the forgotten group there. That era between those two legendary coaches, and if this happens, that'll be just another sign of that. That we're kind of the forgotten era. The bridge team is what I like to call it. The bridge between two great dynasty coaches. DC, tell our listeners what you got coming up in terms of getting ready to get things rolling again with DC Capstone Report.
We're still on a little hiatus. We'll be coming back in the next week or so with our DC Capstone Report, having some more little nuggets like we had today about the off-season workouts. Got some people out there in those that are giving me some information, and just looking forward to the football team coming up. We'll talk a little bit about our basketball in our first couple of podcasts. Even got some great things to look forward to baseball. Alabama's got a chance this year to sign some baseball players that possibly take it in the draft if they forego the draft. So we hadn't had that in a long time. So every coach at Alabama is looking up, doing things that are making teams at Alabama better, and that's what we focus on the DC Capstone Report.
Yeah, and by the way, 17 baseball players playing in the summer league for Alabama. That's good news for Alabama baseball. And we'll talk a little bit baseball next week with you, DC.